All right, hello everyone. Let me see if I can get this going. Okay, so, hi. How can I get the chat? This is my very first live stream. Welcome everyone. I see I got 4 people in there already. And I got, oh, hi, okay. Nice to see you. Where are the chats? Hang on. Okay, hang on. Let me pull this up on my computer. Oh my goodness, I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, so today's topic is going to be on digestion and fermentation. And so, and what will happen is we'll talk, and if you have questions, please ask in the comment section, and I'll see about getting that going. And we will talk, and then afterwards I'll publish this, and I'll take clips, and we'll try and extract some of the things that were interesting during this chat, and we'll go from there. All right, so I wanted to get started with a chat message that I had the other day about yogurt. I've been doing yogurt for quite a long time, and someone asked me, Matt, I know that in the certain probiotics that we're using to culture, for example, L. reuteri in a milk medium, why is it that if I'm not introducing inulin or if I'm providing milk, how do I know that the bacteria are going to continuously have things to eat once they're in the digestive system? And that was actually such a good question because it brings in the concept of having this microbial balance in the gut and how that balance is maintained. And one thing that we kind of forget, whether we're on like a carnivore diet, so all meat, or a vegan diet, which is all plants, or a mix between the two, is that you are going to still have a continuous flow of glucose throughout your body. Even if you are on what we call a zero carb diet, your brain still operates on glucose, and you'll have the process which is called gluconeogenesis, and it is going to help you, if you're doing a lower carb diet in that sense, you are going to still have a stream of glucose, and all microbes are going to feed off of glucose. That being said, if you are consuming prebiotics, so what is a prebiotic? A prebiotic is the thing that a microbe is going to feed on. So inulin, which is a chain of fructose molecules, 20 plus fructose molecules is what inulin is. Or you could go into like starch, which is just, a chain of glucose molecules, a large chain. And you break it down. You go down into like glucose, lactose, galactose, which is broken up forms of these milk sugars. And as you have a constant flow of food going into you, you're going to essentially, whether you're eating fermented foods or not, you're going to be feeding the bacteria that do feed off of that. And so the idea of how you eat influences your gut microbiome comes into play here. And if you are or are not eating fermented foods, you're going to have a gut microbiome no matter what. So there's that first thing. I do see that we've got about 9 people in here, but I want to see if I can get my comment section going. How do I? Oh, chat filter. Here we go. Okay. So how about let's talk about SIBO real quick. So why do you say separated yogurt is spoiled? Oh, okay. So separated yogurt is spoiled because it's basically the sense of overcooking. And so if you were to take, for example, any other kind of like food product, so if you're to bake bread or if you're to like make like chicken in the oven and you were to cook it for too long, eventually it's going to get burned and it's going to have these non-optimal metabolic byproducts. For example, if you char a chicken that you're roasting, for example, those char byproducts are going to be detrimental to the digestive system. Same thing. If you are fermenting yogurt and you separate it and you ferment it so far that you start getting separation, that separation is going to eventually, you are going to start getting a type of cheese type product, but if it goes so far, you are basically opening up the field to these overcooked milk proteins, which scald and then are not going to digest well, and you do leave the area open for more other microbes to take place. One of the main microbes, like for example, L. reuteri, or even other lactic acid bacteria like Streptococcus thermophilus, once you have fermented for such a long time that you're at like a 4.5 in pH or even lower, your microbes, especially lactic acid bacteria, are going to have a specific pH tolerance. And so, like the human body, we can tolerate certain temperature ranges and certain pH ranges for like our skin and for us to be able to do well. Same thing for microbes. The microbes, if there is too acid of an area for too long and they're swimming in that overly acid medium, they are going to then die. When you over ferment, you are overly acidifying it. It's not the fact that it's separated that's a problem, because you do go into cheese making, which is, I mean, I literally live in France, love cheese. Cheese is perfect. But if you're trying to isolate a specific bacteria like L. reuteri or another lactic acid bacteria, you're just creating a very acid medium, and that acidic medium is going to be too acid for that specific microbe to thrive in. And so what would happen is you would make it, it would separate, maybe you stir it back in, but if you put it in the fridge afterwards, when you pull that same ferment out, I'm not sure how abundant your microbial population would be. Same thing kind of goes into when you go for like commercial yogurts. If they've been sitting on the shelf for a long time, yes, technically you do have like maybe some yogurt bacteria in there, but the amount that you're going to get from fresh yogurt or from like a fresh cheese, those are going to be much, much richer because of the freshness of the product. And also that really ties in well with like the concept of fresh food is best, because as a product sits for longer, you know, when you've had something sitting in the fridge for a long time, you can start the stagnation, leaves the field open for mold spores to set in. There's high moisture, and you get a higher chance of contamination. So I hope that answers the question. So basically, separation, it's not the end of the world, because you can do a cheese type of aspect with it, but if you have it sitting in that specific acid for too long, I'm not sure how long your actual probiotic is going to last and stay alive, because that's the reason why you're trying to have it in that area. So, oh, hi, I ate it and could even make a beautiful second batch from it. Okay, good. I think something that is important for us to know, and very much side note, I'm in the process of setting up my business here in France, and once I have that, I can do official bacterial samples of like my probiotic yogurts, etc., to an official lab, and I can get official lab reports for this. So we can talk about why I'm using my specific method, and I can do official lab readings, and I can talk about what's the CFU unit, how much of the L. reuteri, maybe are there other microbes that are present, and so, and that actually leads itself beautifully into, when doing a ferment, it's hard to only have one microbe. Microbes are a symbiotic community. They are a symbiotic way of interacting with one another. It's really hard to have just one. And that's the reason why when you go into like traditional French or Bulgarian yogurt, you get two main microbes. You get Lactobacillus delbrueckii and Streptococcus thermophilus. These two symbiotic types of microbes interact with one another and they create yogurt. But if you're trying to have just one L. reuteri or just one other specific Lactobacillus casei, for example, having that all by itself is just harder. It's easier to have supporting characters in there to help hold up the whole microbial community. So, I'm looking at the question. In Backdive for L. reuteri, it says that it does not metabolize inulin. They tested this based on whether the bacteria builds acid from it or not. How do we know it can't process inulin in other ways? Because you just would have gotten a plus sign. So what they do, you have this it's called a metabolic panel, and they will take your L. reuteri or your other whatever microbe you're analyzing, and they will activate it in a warm sugar solution, or glucose, for example. And they will take a little dropper, and they will do droppers into all of these I think it's 50. Yeah, it's an ACH 50 panel, and they will do it into each individual one. And if it changes color, it will have the ability to say, oh, it created acid. And so it's kind of like a pregnancy test. It's kind of like did this microbe do anything with this specific sugar? And so that is how you can tell. And when you go into Backdive and you look at the different types of L. reuteri, so you have, when you type it in, you type L. reuteri, and you have your hits, the one that has the most strains, that's the one that you're going to want to look at, because it's going to give you a very big overall general review of what actually is working. And so from all of these individual strains, hang on, I'm so smart. I actually have my notes with me and I can show you. So here in L. reuteri, this is my Backdive printout. So right here, there are all of these strains. And so when we go down into, so right here, when you go down into your metabolites, the metabolite, when they did those droppers, if it produced acid, they'll just check it off and it will have changed color. If it doesn't, usually what they'll do is they will, depending on how many strains there are, they'll do multiple tests, and they'll have a control, they'll have a test for one strain, maybe then a different strain, and then as you're looking at it, so this specific one right here tested all of these. And so what they found, so if you look at temperatures, for example, right here, they said that, and you look at the references, which are the scientific references they used, it says, we observed the growth at 37 degrees Celsius, which is body temperature, so 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it just gives you a list of how many times they observed growth at that temperature range. Same thing for the inulin here. It never metabolized, the L. reuteri never metabolized the inulin. And you can also, and so you're going to get a negative sign next to it, but you can also cross-reference. You can look at inulin as a molecule, go to Wikipedia, you type in inulin, and it'll show you that it is a chain of fructose molecules. And so if I go into the exact same one, I'll look and I'll see, so fucose, Fucose, is another form of fructose, and there's still a negative sign there as well. Then if you go down into fructose, there's also, hang on, where is it in here? From memory, it doesn't metabolize that either. And so it's not that inulin is a bad prebiotic, it's just not an optimal one for the L. reuteri specifically. And that's my reason for it. I still think that inulin is a fantastic prebiotic in a general sense. I do think that when people are taking prebiotics, that they should be very in a mode of observation. Do it individually because it is a chain of fructose molecules. And if you're having a high fructose intake from inulin and you don't digest fructose well because you maybe don't have a lot of like fruit in your diet, you would then maybe not experience good results from that prebiotic, and that just means that that prebiotic is not made for you, and that's perfectly fine. There are other prebiotics that are out there, and you know, inulin is great, but it's not the only one, and it's just the one that has a lot of buzzword popularity behind it because we're learning a lot about it right now. So there's a lot of conversation about it right now. But is the best prebiotic to end all prebiotics? No, because there are just other prebiotics that exist, and there's a lot, and so the inulin, I want to say, maybe if you're not sure about it being helpful, instead of trying to ferment with it, try it as an actual, get a glass of water and try it as is, and you will see, oh, I feel better, or oh, this caused bloating and I don't feel well, and you'd be able to kind of deduce from that anyway. So let's keep going. Last question: do whey and curd have the same acidity? I think the whey should be having more acidity. Oh, I'm gonna have to double check that. That's actually a really good question. I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. But that's a really good question. The whey, so when I'm thinking about it, because when you have curds and whey, your curds are going to be metabolized, not metabolized, they're going to be, the proteins in the curds are going to congeal, that's the word I'm looking for, are going to congeal from the acidity in the whey. So my first guess, my educated guess would be that the whey protein that's floating would be the more acidic of the two. But even as I say that, when I'm looking at yogurt and I'm interacting with it, it's fluid. Maybe there's homeostasis. Maybe they have the same pH. But if I had to guess, I would say maybe whey would be the more acidic of the two. And maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so you guys, I'm so happy that you guys are participating in my live. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you. Colostrum seems to be the thing right now. Oh, I love colostrum. Okay, if adding it to your fermented dairy, should it be added to the finished product when consuming, or should it be consumed at 2 different times? Fantastic question. So colostrum is, in my opinion, something that should be manipulated the least because of how much of I almost want to call it a delicacy, because it's kind of like raw milk. And so colostrum, if you're getting it truly raw, it's going to have a lot of those like mother milk enzymes that you would not be getting if you process it. You can, yes, of course, you can take your if you actually have real colostrum, first of all, good job. That stuff is hard to source. But if you get that colostrum, I would say you can absolutely like stir it in with other things and have that way. You could stir it in with yogurt. You could stir it in with cut up fruits and maybe a drizzle of honey, and that would be good. But I would not heat up the colostrum, if that is maybe your question, because you would be destroying some of the enzymes. But in any case, if you have it, please, yes, keep having it. Hey, Matthew, did you do your lab CFU count after the experimental 6-hour fermentation? That is on the way. Like I said earlier, I am in the process of establishing my French nutrition business here in France, and the independent freelance work, let's say the administration is taking some time, but hey, administration always takes some time. So it's coming, but there is so the company is called Eurofins, EURO, like Europe, and then FINS, and they are the main people, that's the main company that does and works with fermented foods and microbial analysis and food safety. And so if anyone is in Europe and has a business, by all means, please. But I did go and I did ask them, hey, can I do this? But I don't have, I didn't have a business yet, because they're going to ask for a business identification number that they can associate for tax reasons. And because they only do business to business, commercial types of interactions. And so I didn't have that. But what I will say that's incredibly important is that the Eurofins, they are going to give a full panel. They're not going to be simplified. They're going to give me the full rundown, the full CFU count, the full everything. And so once that resource is opened up for me and I have my business identification number here in France, I'll have access to all of that, and I'm very excited. So the word is stay tuned. All right, thanks for the clarification about inulin. How can you effectively tell if you get benefits from eating elruderi versus placebo? Ooh, good question. So, versus placebo. You would have to do, good question. You would have to do, have someone else give you regular yogurt, and you would have to blindly do that, if that even makes sense. And you would have to have several batches, and so you would have to have that invisibly. But elruderi all on its own is a pretty powerful probiotic, especially the one from BioGaia, because they have that patented backing up that they can prove with the scientific studies that they have done. I do want to give kind of a side note about it, because sometimes as I'm talking to people that are using elruderi, they are not sure if it's the fermentation that's helpful, or if it's the actual elruderi that's helpful, or what it is that's actually working. And I feel like sometimes people get lost in the procedure of what they're doing. And I have told people, have you just tried taking an elruderi capsule, for 3 to 5 days, and, do you feel better? And if they don't actually feel better, I'd say, well, then, maybe it's just the fact that you're including fermented foods for the first time in your life, genuinely, from yogurt or from, this just cultured thing that you're consuming. Maybe that's the reason why you feel better. A lot of the times, and one of my main, I want to say, messages as a dietitian is, I think that there's a lot of processed food in the modern diet, and the processed food isn't a problem because it helps distribute food all over the world, but I do think that it has caused a deficiency from having, I don't say even just lacto-fermented foods, but just having live microbial cultures on our dinner plate. That just has not been happening as much, in the modern times. And my perspective is that, what you eat is important, obviously, but having a true and genuine approach to, I'm going to influence my gut microbiome, I'm going to eat these beneficial bacteria, I'm going to take a methodical approach to influencing my gut microbiome, and then I'm going to have my foods, and then I'm going to make my decisions. I think that's a smart way to talk about diet, as opposed to always having things that are wrapped up in plastic. You don't know where it's coming from. You're detached from what the food actually is. A lot of the times people will go to, and hey, I'll talk. As an American, when I moved to France, when I first got here and I went to the farmer's market, I had a strange moment where I was like, I grew up in the Midwest. I'm from Michigan. I had never made the connection about going to the farmer's market and seeing a chicken with the feet on. And I saw that for the very first time, and I thought, duh. But it was strange to see it being sold that way. And so getting you reattached to how your food is grown, processed, and then served to you on a plate, having raw foods, raw vegetables, raw fruits, those are also other ways for you to get, you know, microbes into your system and then to ferment. And then, you know, as you lean into these traditionally made foods, you get sourdough bread. Maybe you get like rice wine. Maybe you get like a naturally fermented beer. Maybe you get a naturally made soda. Maybe you get a lacto fermented carrot or like sauerkraut or cheese. I go to the farmers market and the cheese stand is enormous. You want to influence your gut microbiome? Go to the cheese stand. That's so easy and it's yummy. So I digress. Okay, so let's go back to these questions. Okay, based on your recipe. Oh, I've been making arugula yogurt based on your recipe. I have never restarted my batches with the tablets since they come out nice every time. Do I really need to restart eventually? I haven't needed to personally. It depends on your kitchen. What I usually do is I'll make a full batch from my tabs, and then I'll take a little baggie, kind of like this one, and I'll fill it up. And then when it's frozen, I'll break it up into like 8 pieces or, you know, however many I want. And that way I have like a mother source that's purely tablet to yogurt. And then I'll use that, you know, just in case maybe it goes a little bit sideways. But this goes into, it kind of relates to milk kefir because milk kefir populations vary from summer to winter. You're going to have different lactic acid bacteria populations. And so maybe it's a good idea that even if as you're fermenting, maybe you're not getting as much albuterol as you were at the very beginning, but maybe you're getting other supporting actors, which are still good. You should have a diverse microbiome that has a beautiful community. The community that you're wanting to build in your gut is the thing that you should be paying attention to. Yes, you can have a star roll of the albuterol if you like, but having only that one of albuterol, I think maybe is slightly short-sighted because there is so much you can do with fermented food. And so I personally have not needed to keep going back to the albuterol tabs. I do them on my YouTube videos because people like to see the visual proof of me using the tab and putting it in the heated and cooled milk and then incubating it and having it come out and having it be this solid thing. It's quite nice to have that visual proof. So, but, you know, when I'm here doing my yogurt on my own, I'm just using the one that I genuinely have been using for generations. But I do keep a safety net just in case of frozen cultures in my freezer just in case. So I hope that helps. All right, so, oh, you're welcome. Okay. Matthew, a tip for you, BioGaia licensed the strain to, in Italy, it costs a fraction of the BioGaia price. Oh, that is a fantastic, I will have to look that up. I did not know that. It costs, it still has the DSM 17930. So I do want to talk about that real quick. Fantastic point. Thank you very, very much, Roberto. So L-Reuteri, if you go into the BioGaia website, or you just type into your little internet browser the name of the microbe, and then you type in patent, you would be able to get you'll be able to see the patent, and then you can like kind of cross-reference where it's being distributed, and you'll get like this like really official page. Oh, if you want to hang on real quick, let me pull it up for you. So hang on, patent, L-Reuteri, DSM. Here we go. And so I'm gonna show you guys. So here. So go into Google, and all I've done is just typed in L. reuteri patent, and that first link right there is Google Patents. That's the name of the website. And you're going to get this page right here. And so on this page, what you will see is it says Lactobacillus reuteri DSM 17938 for the development of the enteric nervous system. And it will give you an abstract, and then it will give you its applications, and it will give you its patent citations, and then where it can be sourced, and it will give you all of the official health claims. So here, right here in this section right here, it'll give you more information about the claims that they are legally allowed to make about the actual probiotic and what they can officially legally claim. If you are looking at another probiotic supplement and it doesn't have that specification on it, it doesn't say DSM something, if it just says the name of the probiotic, of the microbe, and then it has comma, you're getting a generic version. Generic versions are perfectly fine. But if someone says something just about like oxytocin, or if someone has a specific claim to it, you would have to be able to associate that specific claim to the generic version of that microbe. What the people in the L. reuteri research have done is that they have taken their bacterial genes and they have done natural selection onto the bacteria, and they've isolated, and they've taken like a group of L. reuteri. They've found one that had maybe a mutation that did better for whatever reason. They isolated it, they multiplied it. One had an even stronger one. They isolated it, they multiplied it, and they just kept refining it down until you get this really, really specific microbe that has a specific health property that it can bring to the host, which is why patented microbes cannot be sold by other companies that do not own the patent. And if someone is selling a different microbe, like you have on iHerb, you have generic probiotics. They're fantastic, but it is generic. But they can't technically claim, they can't make health claims unless if there is a scientific study that can back it up. So you do want to pay attention to that. But fantastic tip, Roberto. Thank you very much. So moving on, question. Are these fermented strains best taken on an empty stomach? Great question. So the answer is it depends. If it's a new ferment, I would say no, because you want to I'm not going to say your gut microbiome, because I'm talking about your GI biome. From your mouth all the way up to the other end, you're going to have a microbial population. There's microbes in your lungs, there's microbes on your skin, there are microbes everywhere. If you take a new probiotic or a new ferment that you've never had before and you have it isolated, you have more of I don't want to say risk, because it's not a risk, but you may not tolerate it well because your body's just not going to recognize it. And so what I would say is that when you are, and this is what I say to clients, when you are introducing new ferments, you always want to have a very familiar meal. So for me, here in France, I would have, for example, like some sourdough bread, and I would have this like spreadable cheese. Maybe there's like an egg, maybe, something. And then I would add in this new thing and this new ferment so that my body says, oh, I see all of these very familiar things, and there is this newcomer who's the plus one, and you have this easy way of introducing this new thing to your system. And you always want to introduce a little bit at a time, 1 spoon at a time, not too much too fast. And then Once your body has been introduced to the ferment, then you would be able to have it in more isolated cases. An awesome example of this is when I was making ginger beer from my home fermented ginger bug, from my little bottles. I had it all by itself in the beginning, and I'm not going to lie, my stomach would hurt a little bit, but then I realized that I was introducing a new ferment and new microbes to my gut, and maybe my gut was hurting just because it was adjusting, having nothing to do with the carbonation. And I thought, and I had to tell myself, you're the dietitian, you should know. And I'm like, yeah, I'm introducing a new ferment all on its own. And of course, not of course, but it makes sense that when you're introducing this new thing, maybe you're not going to tolerate it so just because of how new it is. And so then instead, I started having my regular meal, and then, at the end of the meal, I'd have a fun little fizzy drink, and all of a sudden, I started digesting it super well. And so what I'm getting at is, if you're doing a new ferment, I would say introduce it first with other foods that your body knows and recognizes, and then move on to trying it individually and see how you do. Do you think some probiotics are overrated? Have you tried high-quality lacto-fermented sauerkraut, pickles, arugula yogurt for 1 year? Haven't really noticed anything. Oh, okay. So yeah, I think that there are some probiotics that are overrated. Absolutely. The iHerb generic ones sometimes are just really hit and miss. Some people love them. Other people are like, it's a sugar pill. It doesn't do anything for me. So one thing that I do want to say, pickles, lactoferments, those are nice for a very well-balanced gut microbiome, yogurt as well. But a lot of the times we forget that like vinegar, like actual homemade vinegar, has acetic acid bacteria. And so if someone has a wanting of to do more probiotics in their diet because their gut hurts or for whatever reason, if you need, of course, guys, if you need help, you can always reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk to any of you. And again, thank you for joining me on my very first live. This is very nice to have you. But there are 4 main microbial groups in fermented foods that we're going to see. You're going to get your lactic acid bacteria. You're going to get your acetic acid bacteria. So your lactic acid bacteria, that's all your lacto-fermented foods. That's your sauerkraut, that's your pickles, those are your yogurts. Then your acetic acid bacteria, you're going to have mainly vinegars. And then you're going to get yeasts from ginger bugs, naturally fermented beers, wine, naturally fermented rice wine, what also? Oh, sourdough bread. But, if you're cooking the sourdough bread, of course, your microbes are going to be dead afterwards. So, using that common sense. And then afterwards, you're going to get molds. And a lot of the time, people are nervous about mold because, mold intolerance does happen. People are nervous about the whole thing. But, when you go to, and I'm just using France because it's an easy example for me here who is living in France, but when you are having cheeses, you are bringing in certain mold cultures into your gut microbiome. And I would have a hard time saying cheese is bad for you because it is bringing this rich, diverse microbial community to the gut microbiome. And the French are known for having fantastic health. And so, thank you for the likes. Maybe that's a French friend that's saying, hey. So if you think that a probiotic is not being helpful, I would say go and try a different microbial family. So maybe if you didn't like the lactic acid bacteria, try vinegars, natural vinegars, or try like a yeasted product, like a naturally made ferment, like a wine, a beer, or like a ginger bug, for example. And if that still doesn't work, maybe then try a like a natural cheese, and see, and you'll be surprised at when you do the variety, sometimes you'll get a certain specific one that works better than a different one. And so I say, yes, I do think certain probiotics are overrated, but I do want to say, don't let that be discouraging. I'd say take that in stride and say, maybe this one wasn't so beneficial. Let's try something different. And after a while, you'll find something that does work for you. On a more personal note, I got started with pickles, and I am a true pickle lover, but I don't really care for like lacto-fermented pickles. I'm more of like a true vinegar pickle person, and I should like sauerkraut. It's fine. I just don't care for it. It doesn't do anything for me, but I love lacto-fermented carrots. I love, well, of course, I love yogurt. Like, that's not a mystery to anyone. And then I go into the French farmer's market and I love cheeses. Like those, I have found the ferments that work well for my body and that align with, I almost want to say, my values. Kind of a side note, I did my ancestry like a few years ago, and I found out that I was 3/4 French, German in that whole area. And so for me to do well with like cheeses, and like I do well with bread and, you know, sourdough bread, I do well with these naturally European foods that makes sense for me ancestrally speaking. And when I went to go try more Asian style ferments, because I'm curious, you know, whoa, what is this natto? What is this tempeh? What is this rice wine? It just didn't stick as well. And I kept finding myself going back to things that were more ancestrally consistent for me. So maybe when you're making your decisions on what kind of ferments you want to try, see what is culturally relevant in your specific heritage. Kind of a fun experiment that I found was relevant for me. So let's keep going. Do you think some probiotics are overrated? Okay, we talked about that one. What can you tell us about health benefits and yogurt making fermentation of, and alcoagulants, raminus and alcoagulants? Are they worth cultivating? I think having fermented foods in your diet is worth the effort. However you want to go about doing it. What I would do, if you're interested in these specific ones, the L-coagulants, that one is going to be a really main player in cheeses. And so I'd say just start having more raw cheese. But the other one, I'd have to look that one up to see where it is naturally found. And then I would see about making that naturally from those specific fermented foods. I'm not sure. I think that might be another cheese one. I'm not so sure, to be honest. I've not memorized the entire microbial population of all fermented foods. I will be honest there. But if you are curious about a specific microbe and you're not sure, and maybe you're hesitant, I know some people want to have like the microbes that are present in natto, but they don't like natto. Taking that supplement is a really easy way to kind of bystep that kind of process. So if you're curious, try a supplement of that specific one and then go forward from there. So my answer is so coagulants is the cheese, and then the other one, I would say try a ferment that has that specific one in there. And that might even be another cheese one. And yes, I think all microbes are worth cultivating, because the faster you incorporate new microbes into your diet, the faster you find the ones that really work for you. And I'm really a big fan of, I hope I don't get scolded for this, but for trying a bunch of things, throwing it all at the wall and seeing what sticks. For example, and it's kind of a side note, you know, as a dietitian, I work with a ton of like supplements, like, you know, I got my B complex, I got my this, I got my that. And sometimes, so I have my own medicine cabinet of the supplements that really work for me. And it surprised me, the ones that were the most common and the most helpful for a lot of other people didn't do anything for me. And for me specifically, I'm from Michigan, where there's a lot of fluoride and a lot of things, I did really, really, really well with iodine. And I really needed a lot of help with some like underlying hypothyroidism from, you know, way back when. But this one truly was one of my eye-opening experiences as to how beneficial probiotic supplement can be. And so, but I wouldn't have known about it unless if I had tried it and I had thought, oh, sure, maybe. I tried it once and it was eye-opening, and I thought, Matthew, you really need to pay attention to not be dismissive of probiotics, of supplements, because they're not the most common or the most popular ones. Try them, see what works for you. You're an individual, and your individual metabolism, your makeup makes a difference and is important. So what I'm saying is try a variety and see what works. You'll be surprised as to what does work. Okay. Next, just got my first Reuteri pills. What is the first batch? Often not great. Sluggish microbes? Ooh, good question. Perhaps I can make a small start of 1 pill. So what you are doing, so all microbes are going to have, how would I say this? All microbes are going to have a specific metabolic pathway that they go down. When I look at, because I have it right in front of me, when I have my L. reuteri metabolite panel, all of these plus signs, all of the plus signs, my L. reuteri can technically go down that road. And so this is why you want to pay attention as to not switch up your metabolite, the sugar that you're providing, because you need to give your bacteria time to adjust. Keep in mind that as you are fermenting, you're going to have generations of microbes. The CFU unit, from it being this one, this first generation, to this generation, to this generation, the exponential growth, those are the future generations being made within the hours of your incubation. That is super important. I was want to say, did you hear that? That was so important. These are the generations that you're making, and as you take these microbes and you put them in a milk medium and they're exposed to lactose, you are telling this microbe there is an abundance of lactose, eat the lactose, metabolize the lactose, and so you're going to get this future generation. Who knows how many cycles it's been. Usually in milk cultures, you're going to get between like 9 generations, so 9 doublings, and through maybe even more generations, because the doubling doesn't take into account. Anyway, what you are doing though is you are amplifying the microbe, and they are creating generations, and you are really reinforcing the I'm going to digest lactose pathway, which is why when you have a microbe, it can be slow to start, because you're busy, the microbes are busy making generations and learning that lactose is the pathway to go down. And so in a sense, it's creating a highway for lactose. But then another one on the side, so D-ribose is another one. That one, the side street. It does work. It can go down that side street, but it knows for a fact that it's going to do well with that lactose highway. And so it's just metabolic siphoning, let's call it. And so if you were to take, for example, a milk-based lactose highway L. reuteri, and you were to put it into a non-dairy coconut yogurt, soy, whatever, or even like a carrot juice, or even maybe a pineapple juice, you're going to put it into that one, I'm not so sure how well it would do. I think it would eventually work, but your time that it takes for these bacteria to continually multiply and create generation, that's going to be longer, because you're saying destroy that highway, that lactose highway that you just spent a ton of generations building, and build this completely different highway in this completely other direction, which it can do, but it will take time. And so you need to account for that when you are doing your fermentation. That also goes into the paying attention to your ferment as you are incubating. When you are doing your incubation, you have to look at, you can pay attention to the pH if you want, but you have to watch it to see, has the pH gone down? Has the yogurt solidified? Has the fermentation process worked? And so if it's slow to start, that's fine. But you just have to be aware that different conditions are going to cause it to slow down. If you bring in something new, it'll slow down. When I have cycles of French yogurt going, if I bring it out from the freezer and I do a fresh batch, it'll take me 6 hours. But then the next batch, because it's been woken up and I pulled it out of the freezer, those microbes that are present will do better next time. And so the fermentation process after that, the next batch, it'll take maybe 4 hours, because they've been woken up and have been stimulated, and so they're ready to go. So you do want to keep that in mind. Does washing fruits and vegetables reduce the probiotic amount you could ingest? I do think it's important to wash your fruits and vegetables. It depends on where you're sourcing your fruits and vegetables from. But if you're wanting to pay attention to, I would say if you're getting farm fresh, it's less important, and you could just like brush them and that would be perfectly fine. There is the concept of over sterilization, which I think is a huge problem in the US, but everywhere in the world, to overly plastic wrapped things for food to survive on the shelf. I think that when it's completely barren, when food is barren, that and it's then prone to mold, I think that's a problem. So your question has a lot of nuance to it. So I would say the washing is more important as to when you're getting it from like a chain grocery store. But if you're doing it from like a local farm, you could brush and that would be just fine. If I go to like a local apple orchard and I know the farmer, I'm just gonna pick an apple off a tree and eat it that way. I'm not washing that thing. But also, like, I'm the microbe guy, I'm the fermentation guy. I like the microbes, and I think I can smell something, I can taste. I'm trying to use my senses to tell me, is this good? Is this appropriate for me to swallow? Or, does it need to be spit out? Or, and if I think something needs to be washed, I will wash that. But so if we're to talk about like maybe even more like ancestral practices, when you go into the French countryside and they're growing plums and you're wanting like a plum wine, if you wash those plums, you ruin them. You can't make wine because you've washed away all of the yeast. So the answer to your question is it depends, but good question. Okay, so Oliver says, I am eating perfect Albuterol yogurt. Thanks for your recipe, by the way. You're very welcome. But I still have some eczema around my eyes. Any help? What can I do? You're more than welcome to reach out on my website. I'll also provide a link at the end of this that you can click on for you to continue. So a form from Google that you can click on so that I can reach out to you, because I can't click on your names here and message you guys this way. You guys either have to come towards me or you have to click on the thing that I'm going to put into the chat later on at the end of this. But you can message me privately for that. But because I would need more to know about what is going on with your eyes and your eczema. I know that for eczema, a lot of the times, so I had more of like a rosacea kind of problem, but with eczema around the eyes, I'm not sure where your eczema is, but you could pay attention to, you can try this, but I've actually had people like put actual yogurt, like French yogurt, not the Albuterol one. I've not tried recommending that yet, but putting it on the actual eczema, because the eczema, if you were to take like a cotton swab and swab it and put it under a microscope, you would have a microbial population that is on your eczema. One other thing that I will mention is that and so you're getting into skin, and skin is that's my thing technically. That's kind of how I got into nutrition. So there's this book, it's called Healing Springs, the Natural Healing Springs. The reason why I'm telling you about it is because there are natural spring waters and their mineral composition that helps with skin conditions. And I have come to the conclusion that a lot of the times with skin conditions, there's a mineral imbalance that's going on. And for eczema, I would say you would want to pay attention to sulfur. Sulfur is really powerful for more inflammatory types of, so like the redness from rosacea, the redness maybe from your eczema. I know that I used a sulfur cream, which is De La Cruz sulfur cream, 15%, and that brought my redness down by a lot. You're your own person. It's hard for me to give you a genuine recommendation, but from my perspective of just this comment, that is what I would look into. The De La Cruz, it's technically an acne cream for like actual pimples, but it's really good. Sulfur all on its own is really good for skin, all things skin condition. But also please reach out via my website, and I'd love to talk to you more in detail about that. I hope that helps. If you have more to ask about that, please ask. So next question. Been consuming about 1/4 cup Albuterol for a few times a week for about 1 month. Always loose stools. Why? That would be, so the loose stools are going to be, so microbes usually are bowel stimulating, and they can cause loose stools. That would be more of you'd want more of like a constipating type of probiotic. And so that would tell, my top recommendation for you then would be, oh my goodness, what is the name of that probiotic? It's not Streptococcus thermophilus. There's that one yeast, oh my goodness, what is the name of it? There is an anti-diarrhea probiotic, and it is slipping my mind right now. But it's a yeast, and so I would tell you, go into more of the yeasted types of ferments, and the yeast will help absorb the excess of fluid that's in your gut. Oh my goodness, what is the name of that yeast? But you could do like a ginger beer. You could do a naturally fermented soda. You could even do like a naturally fermented wine or even beer. And I don't want to say me recommending alcohol, what a concept, but it's technically the yeast that you're interested in. But if you were to go into your website, hang on, I am going to look this up real quick because I'm having a genuine brain fart. But you just type in probiotic yeast, Saccharomyces boulardii. Sorry. Okay, Saccharomyces boulardii, that one would help you for diarrhea. Oh, hi, Christy. Can relate to noticing adjustment period when adding new ferments, going slow and keeping familiar foods paired with the new ferments does seem helpful. Thank you. Hey, bro, big fan. Thank you. Let's give all a like, folks. Oh my God, you guys, thank you for all the support. I really appreciate it. Oh my goodness, the support. You guys are the best. Oh, I'm glad you guys are liking this. Homebrewed beer is good for you. Yeah. Dude, perfect. Hey, ferments, thanks to you. Oh my goodness, thank you. Doing a fruit ferment right now. Good, good. Hi. Does fermenting whole milk for 36 hours versus 18 hours give more microbiome count for L. reuteri? Have you done any official testing to microbial count? Please advise. So I have not done official testing, but what I'm doing is I'm using pH as my proxy of the finish line. And so, like I said in one of my other tutorials, your finish line is your indicator of I have your ferment saying I have achieved my optimal like fermentation load, my microbial load that that I have the possibility of doing, of accomplishing. So, for example, if I am in the middle of winter and I make a soda, that will take me maybe 36 hours for it to ferment. So that finish line is just 36 hours away because of the time it takes, because it's colder out. But if it is summertime and I do the exact same thing, it'll take me half the time because it's warmer and the microbes are being stimulated faster. And so that time to the finish line, the time is not the proxy you want to pay attention to. There are other factors that you want to pay attention to that help you decide, is my ferment done? When you make a loaf of bread, maybe it says 40 minutes to bake, but you check it at 35, 40, 50 minutes, I'm using a random example, but you pay attention to the time it takes as to when it's actually done. But because of the fermentation microbial load happening, you can use pH as a proxy as one specific proxy to help you identify when it's done. But you're more than welcome to ferment way past if you have too acidic of an environment that your bacteria is sitting in. If it's overly acid, the bacteria that are in that acid may disintegrate. And so then I would say, I would recommend you watch my video on pH and CFUs, which is on my YouTube channel if you are interested in watching that. And that would answer your question a little bit more. And then also my most recent one on the L. reuteri yogurt tutorial for the yogurt maker. That one has the last 10 minutes, if I'm remembering correctly, talks about why 8, 9, 10 hours works as compared to 36 hours. And so what's happening in your 36-hour ferment is that you have a load of fat, the actual lipid, that quantity that is in your cream or your half and half or your milk, that is slowing down it is just adding on like a weighted vest to that microbe for it to get to the finish line. So it is taking 36 hours for it to get there if you're using like full cream. And so then I would say watch the CFU pH dynamics video and then watch the last 10 minutes of my L. reuteri yogurt tutorial with the yogurt maker. That would answer your question. Hi Matthew, you're easy to watch and your knowledge and passion for this topic is appreciated. Thank you very much. It was cool to learn about backdive and searching patents. LOL. My pleasure. What's a lacto-fermented veg made with? Milk? Oh, so you have a very wide variety of lactic acid bacteria that exist out in the world. And so what happens is that if you go to I want to say the farmer's market, but if you just go get any kind of like nicer quality like cabbage or anything, and you cut that cabbage up and you put it into a salt brine. So a salt brine is 3 tablespoons of sea salt per liter / quart of milk, and you put that cut up cabbage into a jar using my bottle, and you put it here, and you have your salt water floating above it, so everything is submerged under that water. The natural lactic acid bacteria in your vegetable will
proliferate and will ferment. And so you can get lacto-fermented products from milk products, vegetables, and fruits. Those are your main ones, but lactic acid bacteria are everywhere. And your main way of capturing them is in fermented foods. There are lactic acid bacteria in cabbage and in other fruits, vegetables, and milk products, but at a much lower amount. So what you're doing when you're taking a ferment and you're letting it ferment for, if you're doing sauerkraut, you let it ferment for 2 to 4 to 8 weeks. And so you're letting it develop and multiply up. The amount of bacteria you get on that forkful is exponentially larger compared to if you were eating raw cabbage. So I hope that helps. And if you're interested in fermented foods and lactic acid bacteria and that whole thing, I would highly recommend looking up Sandor Katz. He is very good with the fermentation field. He has stuff on YouTube, or you just start looking up random fermentation people that you enjoy on YouTube. You can ask me, of course. I'd love to, answer your questions. But there are a ton of resources out there, and I'm not the only resource. But it's just part of my profession. Okay, so do you think we should step away from consuming fermented foods for gastritis and/or ulcers? Seems to trigger me. Okay. So ulcers usually have an H. pylori type of infection. And so what I would say is if a ferment is bothering you, I would say step away from the ferment for the moment being. And what you'd really want to do at that moment is instead really amplify your hydration. You want your detox pathways to really open up so that as you introduce new ferments into your diet, that they have somewhere to go. So what has happened is that if you have gastritis or like a sore on the inside, that sore, if you need there to be enough water passing over it so that the chunks of the ulcer that are not doing well get picked up by the overall flow of the hydration that you're bringing in. But if you're not well hydrated and you're bringing in new ferments, you're getting this direct contact, and this is very niche, but it's you need the detox pathway to open up for the pee to be flowing really nicely and really easily. You need to have clear pee for at least once per day, at least, so that you have these opened up pathways in order for the toxin to, as it's coming up and out of you, for it to be able to go somewhere. If not, what will happen is you'll consume a fermented food and to address the problem, but because there's the highway for the detox to come up and out of you isn't optimized, isn't opened up, it'll be uprooted, and then it will just not go as far as it should, and you'll get a histamine reaction, and you'll get a negative response. So hopefully that helps. Christy says, I have stuck with yogurt and your carrots. I'm seeing fruit ferments above. I heard you said ginger beer, even homemade sodas. Would you be sharing any soda videos? That sounds exciting. Oh, I would love to do it. You guys, I gotta tell you, it takes some time in the editing room for me to actually do the videos from start to finish. But I definitely have a soda video that I've been wanting to do for a while, because I have a gingerbug video that I made forever ago, but I got kind of swept up in the El Bruderai conversation, but I am wanting to diversify and create more tutorials like soda, for example. And I even have my very first wine that's sitting, below my counter right there, fermenting away. So it's coming. But that was kind of like the purpose of doing this live stream, is to answer more questions and to kind of get all of this going so that it can be easier for me to go and do a tutorial on a soda, because I've been able to spend time and answer your questions here, because as opposed to spending 10 hours editing a video on yogurts, I'm spending an hour with you guys answering questions here, and that time exchange is it makes a little bit more sense. So yes, other tutorials are coming soon, and thank you for participating. My current yogurt is made from one of Matt's frozen cultures, and I'm loving it. Thank you, Matt. Oh, you're welcome. Hey, good day to you. Apple juice. Hang on. Good day to you. I thought you had a video showing us how to make a mother from apple juice, and I can't find it. So that video is my vinegar video, and it should be on my channel. But to answer your question, what I did is I took my ginger bug video, that same one, I stirred up my ginger bug and then changed subjects, started doing a different fermentation project, and I just put a cheesecloth over my active fermented ginger bug, and eventually it developed a mother, and so it created a disc, and that disc was what was used for it to create vinegar. And so that's how I want to say that's kind of how I stumbled into vinegar making, but technically that's not vinegar making. It's because you do have to go through wine, but it does have acetic acid bacteria in it. And so while technically in textbook terms, I can't call it vinegar, it's kind of like a Franken vinegar, but it does have the same benefits as vinegar. So I would say a forgotten ginger bug is how I made my very first vinegar, and then I took that disc and I plopped it into a new jar, and I poured apple cider over it, apple juice over it, and then I put a cheesecloth over it, and I let it sit for like 4 weeks, and then I just stuck a pH strip in it, and it was at like a 2.5, and I tasted it, and it just tasted like this like really bright apple cider vinegar, and used that, and so that was kind of that is how I did mine. Okay, so I hope that helps. Question, lots of belching after meals. Is this due to low stomach acid? Yes, it is. You should watch, I have a really old video on my YouTube channel that is on gas production and how gas is made in the body. I highly recommend you watch that one. And so in that video, I talk about the presence of gas in the body and what determines you getting belching, so upper third gas production and having that come up, or when you get bloating, so gas being trapped in the middle, it being so far in the middle that it's not easy for it to come up out of the mouth, and it's not easy for it to go up out the other end because it's too far in the middle. So that is bloating. And then what happens when you get excessive flatulence out the other end. And so that video is on, search Crest Dietetics gas production, and you should get a video that explains that one in better detail. So I do hope that helps. If you are getting belching, though, what I could say, and this would be me not knowing anything, I would say try front loading your meals with either diluted apple cider vinegar or lemon juice. Lemon juice would help activate that stomach acid a little bit faster, so that you're not getting gas production. But your gas production could be a microbe thing, and so it would be up to you to see. My first recommendation at meal times would be to try like a diluted lemon juice, like maybe like I just want like an acidic lemon juice, and that would help. And then proceed with your meal, and you should see that would help. Okay, so now I'm actually going to talk about it. So gas production, if you're having belching, you would then want to introduce, so I talk about this in the video that I mentioned, carminatives, and those carminatives are
certain herbs and spices that break down gas within the system. And those specific ones are ginger, fennel seeds, and anise. Star anise. And those three are the main ones that I personally have found to be the most effective. But within the anise, you can go into that same specific family. And so then you would get
Licorice.
licorice would also probably help. But I would say if you're having belching, I would try even after a meal, do like a crushed fennel seed and ginger tea. Maybe if you like anise, throw some anise in there, but that should help break down the gas that's being produced. And if it doesn't do anything, if it doesn't really help, amp up the either lemon juice or amp up the amount of spice, the ginger, fennel seed, and anise more. Can I use white sugar and elderberry instead of inulin? Yes, you can. And I would do maybe like a tablespoon per liter or quart of milk. Do you recommend freezing a starter from first batch of elderberry yogurt? Yes. So I already addressed this earlier in the live, but master batch, so tabs, crushed up yogurt made, get a bag and freeze that bag, and then use that bag as your main source of elruderi and reference the bag when needed. Does elruderi continue to double at the same rate after fermentation has set? Oh, hi, Judy. After fermentation has set, no, it stops because you pulled it out of the fermentation range. So your question is about temperature technically. So when I go to my elruderi back dive printout, maybe I should make a printout for you guys and publish it. So when I go to the printout, it says that the temperature range, hang on, where is it? Right here. It has growth at these specific temperature ranges. And so you're gonna have 86 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And so once you pull it out of that temperature range, it stops multiplying, or it just multiplies at like a snail's pace. So no, it does not continue to multiply. It enters what we would call like a stationary phase. And so it just kind of is sitting there. What is the appropriate time and temperature for making kefir? Room temp. I usually just use room temp. I don't pay attention to specific temperature ranges. It does get slow in the winter, but if anything, you put it on top of the fridge, or you can put it next to just like your stove, and like the ambient heat would help it go by faster. But it's funny that you say that, because I was reading this one, like, I don't even remember what it was, but I was reading about milk kefir populations changing depending on the season. And I think it's smart to let the microbial population of kefir naturally evolve as the season changes, because it helps your gut microbiome also shift with the season. Because you wouldn't want to, I'm making a scientific guess here, that you wouldn't want to be consuming summer milk kefir because you've warmed it when you're in the dead of winter and it's January and it's cold out. I think that your body would do well, I'm guessing, if you let the milk kefir adjust with the seasons as your body also adjusts with the season. And then naturally, as it warmed up, you would get more of these acidic lactic acid bacteria that have a higher potential, and that would get you up and going a little bit more. That's my hypothesis. Heal the gut. So it needs to be healed from within. Gut's broken problem. Question: is it necessary to heat pasteurized milk for fermenting these bacterial strains, and how does albumin figure into this? So yes, you need to pasteurize you need to
even heat pasteurized milk, because the idea is not to, so you're cleaning the milk when you heat it up again, but the main reason is that you need to denature the whey protein. And so this goes into, which YouTube video was this? Oh gosh, I'm not remembering which video this was, but I talk about the whey protein opening up and as you heat it up. And if you don't heat it up, your whey protein doesn't open, which will then go and it will attach onto, here's an orange, it'll go and attach onto the casein molecule, which will then create that yogurt protein matrix that you're looking for. And if you don't open up the whey, you're going to get yogurt that is more prone to separating, which is why I always recommend heating yogurt. But if you're wanting to make, there are other recipes out there. You do not, if you want to make a different dairy ferment that does not require heating, do milk kefir, do that. But if you're wanting to make a yogurt texture, you have to heat the milk. You know, if you're making, if you're going by my rules, you have to heat the milk. Spray chlorine dioxide for eczema. I'm not sure about that. I have not heard about that. But I have heard stories of people improving their skin conditions by going to like the public chlorinated pool, because it sterilizes the bad opportunistic bacterial population that's on the problem area. But that is also, I don't want to say hearsay, but that's a just things that you read online. Thank you for the comments. Okay. I've been making buckwheat ferment at room temp for 2 to 3 days. High thoughts. Not that I don't have thoughts, but that sounds very interesting. I'd love to hear more. I don't have thoughts because I'm not familiar with it. I wanted to ask, why are people so adamant that inulin should be used when you no comments. Great question. No comments is my answer. How about yeah, let's make a comment. So it goes back to people wanting to listen to just other people that have experience in the field, and regardless of the scientific proof that I've provided, you can't help but deny that when people have done the L-Reuteri with inulin in the past, they have gotten beneficial results. And so regardless, I do think that there is something there. Part of me does want to say that a lot of the times, I don't say I hate to say this, but like a lot of the times, it's just people's first introduction to fermented food. A lot of the times when you go, I want to say L-Reuteri yogurt is kind of the gateway to the benefits of fermented foods. You can go online and just start looking up for like the health benefits of naturally fermented foods, natto, milk kefir, yogurt. Like in the very beginning, so here's a little bit of history. Dannon got a lot, so the Dannon brand, they were the first ones, if I'm not mistaken, but they highlighted that, like, why is it that people who eat regular French yogurt, so just regular yogurt, how is it that these people are living to be 100 years old? So, like, it's not that it's L-Reuteri that's causing, it's, guys, fermented food, all on its own, L-Reuteri, yes, great. But fermented food as a topic is, in my opinion, an incredibly important key to longevity. People I think are getting introduced to this idea of longevity through L-Reuteri, and they're discovering the power of fermented foods through L-Reuteri, which I think is fantastic, because, you know, welcome to the community. I love fermented foods. Let's make a ginger beer, let's make sourdough bread, let's make things. But I do think that there is that should be paid attention to. Is, there are not just studies on the modern probiotics, but we know from the past that the people in the Russian mountains who were making milk kefir also lived to be 100 years old. So let's not forget that while modern probiotics are powerful in the moment when you have a specific acute health problem, that it's down the road when you're having these the ability to consume a fermented food on a daily process, on a daily meal plan, that is what's going to help you maintain longevity. I want to say, this is my personal point of view. You're more than welcome to disagree. But albuterol is something that I would use as a medicine cabinet type of approach for fermentation. But then I would be very cognizant of the fact that, longevity speaking, there is proof in milk kefir producing populations that live to be 100. Same thing for, you go into Asia and you look at all of these people who have these 100-year-old populations that are consuming naturally fermented foods on a daily basis, and it's not this albuterol yogurt. It's just common everyday fermented foods. And so there's importance in albuterol yogurt and there's importance in the probiotic, but I personally use it as you have a specific digestive concern right now, and let's help that. And then when you establish a baseline and you're healthy and your gut feels better and you feel better, let's introduce other fermented foods that will help you with that longevity to make it to 80, 90, 100 years old. So that's kind of my point of view on there. Great reminder about hydration to avoid histamine reaction. Ooh, okay. Maybe my chat is... Okay, so cardamom, fennel too. Cardamom. Oh, I'm not sure about cardamom for gas release. So you could type in carminative, peppermint as well, now that I'm thinking about it. But generally, so let's go back to that gas production. A lot of the times people have problems with gas, belching, burping, bloating, or flatulence. All three of them are a deficiency in herbs and spices, but it depends on the herbs and spices. And then also it depends on like your protein, fat, carb distribution. If you are not, and then stomach acid production. Anyway, so maybe there's a video that happens on that. Okay, so love your enthusiasm and compassion. You're an excellent educator. Thank you very much. Okay, can you elaborate more on sulfur and fungal infections? It's interesting. So sulfur is an antifungal, and can I expand more on it? Yes, I would, yes. But the actual, physiology on how it's working and how that works, I'm not so sure. But there are a few books out there, and when you go into, so if you go into iHerb and you look up sulfur, you'll get MSM, which is a supplement, and you'll get sulfur acne cream, and those both are sulfur supplements, and you get DMSO, and that is another that's a very intense industrial sulfur supplement, and those are strong. So the sulfurs are antioxidant compounds, and those help address skin conditions specifically. And it's reinforced through the natural spring waters, which are rich in sulfur, smelling like eggs, that help with skin conditions, and then also other things like rheumatoid arthritis, for example. Also, if you go into topical mold infections or fungal infections, so if you have, for example, incredibly niche example, but a horse, or if you go into a farm and they have a rash, you can put on this sulfur horse rash cream, and it's an oil, and it has mineral oil on it, and it has I think it's a 15% sulfur cream, and it will kill the fungal infection that's topical. And so then that also goes into when you have fungal infections,
So topically, so fungal acne, which is like a bunch of tiny little bumps in like anywhere, that is a fungal infection. And then you get your redness right here. That's a fungal infection or a yeast infection. And then dandruff. Dandruff is another one that causes, and so if you get a lot of like itching, that can be a sign that sulfur would then be helpful. And so then what you could do is you could get like sulfur salts, like a bath salt, and you could use that. You could soak your feet in that, and it would help restore your internal sulfur stores, and it would help you bring the healing spring waters from that specific area into your home, and you just do a foot bath, and those are quite wonderful. Hang on. Can you elaborate more sulfur by recycling? Wonderful information overall. Thanks for sharing. Love live stream idea in the relaxed format. Hope to see more. Thank you. For more, let's see. Wry sense of humor. Thank you for clear explanation. Vaseline, yes, okay. Onion juice, oh yes, onion juice is high in sulfur. So you're welcome. Alrighty, so we are at an hour and a half, and I was expecting to do like a 30-minute little like chat, and no one was gonna be here. But I am very touched that you guys have joined me on my very first live stream. I think it has been a success. If you like, what I'm going to do is I will. Once this live stream is done, I will publish it. I'll make a thumbnail, and I will make it live for you guys to rewatch later on. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, my name is Matthew Kress of Kress Dietetics. You can visit me on my website at kressdietetics.com. If you have specific questions, you can send me an email at matt@kressdietetics.com. You can find that email address on my website. Feel free to message me about anything. I'm here to work with you guys, and thank you so much for participating. And I will see you in the next live stream. Thank you. Bye.